I have a child. What do? He was so afraid to hold her. I think a lot of men feel that way, but he was so frightened that he would drop her. I didn't know how to hold her. So this was a really happy time.
It began with a headline no one expected to read. Priscilla Presley breaks silence, the truth about Elvis's legacy. Those 12 words hit the internet like a thunderclap. Within hours, news anchors were replaying her interviews, fans were arguing across social media, and Graceland's gates filled once again with reporters asking the same question. What is Priscilla really doing now? For nearly half a century, Priscilla Presley has been both the guardian and the lightning rod of Elvis's legacy. But this time, even her most loyal supporters say she's crossed a line. Some call it courage, others call it betrayal. Whatever you believe, one thing is certain. She has just reopened the deepest wound in the Presley family story.
The spark came from a new interview, calm, deliberate, almost too composed, where Priscilla revealed something that made even longtime Elvis historians pause. She claimed that parts of Elvis's public image were carefully edited, that some stories were never told truthfully, and that it's time people hear what really happened.
To the casual listener, it might have sounded like a woman defending her late husband. But to those who've followed the Presley family battles since Lisa Marie's death, it sounded like something else entirely. A warning shot. Because behind that soft tone was a message layered in years of frustration. Priscilla wants to control how Elvis is remembered, and she's no longer asking permission to do it. Fans flooded the comment sections. She's rewriting history. Others defended her. She lived it. She has the right. The divide was instant. Believers on one side, skeptics on the other, both shouting over a story that refuses to die. And maybe that's what keeps pulling the world back to this family. The way their private heartbreaks somehow mirror our own questions about fame, power, and truth. Priscilla's latest revelation didn't come out of nowhere. It's the continuation of a struggle that's been quietly simmering since Lisa Marie's passing. One that turned courtrooms into battlefields and family dinners into silence. When Priscilla fought for control over her daughter's estate, the world thought it was about money. But now, some wonder if it was about something far more personal. Authorship. The right to decide who tells the story of Elvis Presley. And this time, the stakes aren't just financial. They're emotional, generational, even spiritual. Because in her latest statements, Priscilla spoke not only about her marriage to Elvis, but about what she called his misunderstood faith, his purpose, his fears. She hinted at private moments that until now were off limits. Letters, conversations, confessions. Things she claims could change the way people see the man behind the music. The internet did what it always does. Dissected every word, every pause, every look. One side said it was exploitation. The other said it was liberation. And somewhere in the middle were millions of fans, torn between wanting to know the truth and wishing the past would finally rest. But if there's one thing Priscilla Presley has proven, it's that the past never really rests. Not in Memphis, not at Graceland, not when the ghosts still have something left to say. Those close to her describe a woman who feels misunderstood, who believes that she, more than anyone, carried the weight of Elvis's fame long after his death. While the world adored the king, she dealt with the chaos behind the crown, the loneliness, the pills, the nights when love blurred into survival. And maybe this is her way of reclaiming that story, of saying, I was there too. Still, every time Priscilla speaks, another memory cracks open. Another question rises. Why now? Why stir all this again when peace seemed within reach? Some insiders believe she's preparing a new documentary, one meant to set the record straight. Others whisper that private Presley letters have surfaced, containing details no one outside the family has ever seen. Whatever the truth is, Priscilla's sudden openness feels deliberate, even strategic, as if she's moving pieces on a board most of us don't even see. And that's where the tension lives, between memory and myth, between love and legacy. Because every time Priscilla re-enters the spotlight, the world has to ask, is she defending Elvis or defending herself? The headlines say one thing, the fans say another. But deep down, the question cutting through it all is simpler and colder. Is this really about honoring the king, or about rewriting the kingdom he left behind? Because once again, Priscilla Presley has stepped out of the shadows. And this time, she's not just part of Elvis's story. She's challenging who gets to tell it. And the shockwaves of that decision are only beginning to spread. When Lisa Marie Presley died in early 2023, the world grieved for the daughter of the king. But inside the Presley family, grief quickly turned into something colder. A quiet war over control, memory, and power. And at the center of it all stood Priscilla Presley. She had just buried her only child, yet within weeks she was making headlines again, not for mourning, but for filing a legal petition that challenged Lisa Marie's will. The document named Riley Keough, Lisa's eldest daughter, as the sole trustee of the family estate, including Graceland itself. But Priscilla claimed something was off. Signatures that didn't look right, dates that didn't add up, pages that were missing the formal witnesses required by law. To the tabloids, it looked like greed. To Priscilla, it looked like protection. Those close to her insist she wasn't chasing money. She was chasing control, the one thing she'd been losing piece by piece since Elvis died. For decades, she'd watched others profit off his image, films, tours, holograms, often without her say. The will challenge, they say, was her last line of defense, a way to make sure the Presley legacy stayed in the family, even if that meant tearing the family apart. Riley Keough, on the other hand, saw it differently. She had just lost her mother and was now facing her grandmother across a courtroom. Friends described their relationship as icy and painful. With lawyers speaking more than either woman did, Priscilla insisted it was never meant to be a battle. Just business, she told reporters. But every document filed, every whisper leaked, made it clear this was personal. Behind closed doors, Memphis insiders said Graceland had turned from a home into a fortress. Staff didn't know which side to speak to. Even the house tour guides were told to avoid mentioning the situation. The air around the Presley name was thick with tension. One wrong sentence could end a career. Meanwhile, the public watched in confusion. For years, Priscilla had been seen as the calm matriarch who kept Elvis's image pristine, appearing at every anniversary and tribute event with measured grace. Now she was being painted as the antagonist in her own family's saga, the woman trying to wrestle control from her grieving granddaughter. And yet, for every critic who called her manipulative, another voice rose to defend her. "She built this," one fan wrote online. "Elvis wouldn't be who he is today without Priscilla keeping the flame alive." That defense carried weight. After all, when Elvis died in 1977, his finances were in ruins. It was Priscilla who helped turn Graceland into a global landmark, who managed licensing deals, who made the Presley name profitable again. Without her, the legacy might have faded decades ago. But something about this moment felt different. Maybe because Lisa Marie's death reopened wounds that never really healed. The years of distance between mother and daughter, the resentment over decisions made in Elvis's name, the old arguments about who truly understood him. To outsiders, it looked like a legal dispute. To insiders, it felt like revenge disguised as responsibility. Friends say Priscilla struggled privately with the public backlash. She felt abandoned, one source said, like everyone forgot how much she sacrificed. She'd spent her life walking a thin line, honored as the keeper of Elvis's memory, yet blamed for everything that went wrong after him. Now, even that purpose seemed to be slipping away. When the court finally approved a settlement months later, Riley Keough emerged as the new official heir to Graceland. Priscilla accepted a smaller financial arrangement and an honorary title. Publicly, Both women smiled for the cameras. But those who know them say the truce was fragile, more performance than peace. Because beneath the signatures and statements, something deeper was shifting. Priscilla had realized she was no longer the unquestioned voice of the Presley story. The power she once wielded over Elvis's name, image, and memory was being rewritten by a new generation. And to her, that loss was more painful than any financial cut. That's when her tone began to change. She started giving interviews again, carefully, selectively, reminding audiences that she was there when history happened. She spoke of moments the movies never showed, of conversations only she could recall. Some fans heard nostalgia, others heard a warning. Priscilla wasn't stepping back. She was reclaiming the microphone. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The woman who once tried to escape the shadow of Elvis was now fighting to keep her place inside it. And while some saw this as tragic, others saw it as inevitable. Because the Presley legacy has always been built on tension, love, and control, myth and truth. For years, she'd watched others profit from Elvis's story, films written by people who never met him, documentaries narrated by strangers, dramatizations twisting private pain into glossy entertainment. And now, with one cryptic statement, she'd taken the story back into her hands. Those who've seen pieces of the letters describe them as raw, glimpses of a man wrestling with guilt, questioning the cost of fame, and mourning the quiet he could never find. One allegedly ends with the line, "Priscilla, if they ever tell my story, make sure they tell it right." If true, that sentence changes everything. It turns Priscilla from bystander to gatekeeper, from grieving ex-wife to chosen messenger. And maybe that's exactly how she wants it. But not everyone's buying it. Critics accuse her of timing these discoveries too conveniently, right as new Elvis projects emerge, and just when her influence was starting to fade, they say she's not honoring him. She's using him. And yet, for all the skepticism, there's something hauntingly believable about her. You can see it in her eyes when she talks about him, the mix of reverence and resentment that only true love leaves behind. Because whether you adore her or doubt her, one thing is undeniable. No one knew Elvis like Priscilla did. She lived the chaos. She saw the man behind the myth, the sleepless nights, the loneliness masked by laughter, the slow unraveling beneath the spotlight. And maybe those letters, real or not, are her way of saying, "You've heard everyone else's version, now you'll hear mine." But the risk is enormous. Once those words are public, there's no taking them back. Whatever image the world has of Elvis, saint or sinner, savior or lost soul, could fracture forever, and Priscilla knows that. Which means, if she's going through with it, she believes the world deserves to know something it's not ready to hear. Some say the letters hint that Elvis foresaw his downfall, that he wrote about the toll fame was taking on his body, the growing distance between himself and God, the paranoia that shadowed him in his final months. Others claim they reveal his attempts to reconcile with Priscilla, to fix what fame had broken. If any of that is true, these letters aren't just history. They're confession. And that's why they're dangerous. Because once confession becomes content, the line between truth and theater disappears, and the people who loved him most become characters in their own tragedy. So when Priscilla says, "It's time people know the truth," the world holds its breath. Because truth, in the Presley story, always comes with a cost. The last time she opened the vault, Elvis's reputation changed forever. This time it could rewrite his soul. And somewhere out there, as fans wait and speculate, one question echoes louder than all the rest. If these letters really exist, are they meant to honor Elvis Presley, or to finally remind the world that Priscilla Presley still holds the key to his legacy? Graceland has always been more than a house. It's a monument built from memory, a place where fans come not just to honor Elvis, but to feel closer to something pure, something eternal. But lately, the air around it feels different. What once stood for love and legacy now feels like a battleground, divided between what Elvis left behind and what people are still trying to claim. Ever since Priscilla's latest revelation, the quiet streets outside Graceland have been buzzing again. News trucks parked by the gates, fans holding signs that read, "Let Elvis rest," while others shout, "We deserve the truth." It's a strange kind of loyalty, half reverence, half rebellion, all centered on a man who's been gone for nearly 50 years. Inside those iron gates, the family story that began in love now ripples with distrust. Riley Keough may hold the legal rights, but Priscilla still holds the emotional crown, the authority of memory. She's the last voice from the original era, the one who saw the rise and the fall, the woman who watched Elvis transform from a dreamer into a myth. But every time she speaks, that myth shifts just a little. And that's what frightens people most. Because the Presley legacy isn't just family property, it's cultural scripture. When Priscilla questions it, it shakes something sacred to fans. She's rewriting not just history, but hope. They want Elvis to remain untouchable, pure, heroic, eternal. But Priscilla keeps reminding the world that behind the voice and the jumpsuits was a man, vulnerable, restless, searching for redemption. In her latest statement, she said, "People forget, Elvis wasn't just the king of rock and roll. He was a man who carried the weight of every soul that believed in him." That line echoed through fan communities, igniting another wave of debate. Was she humanizing him or dismantling his divinity? What makes it harder to untangle is the timing. New biopics, documentaries, and even a rumored Graceland series are in the works. Each version retells the same story in a different light, and each one competes for emotional ownership. To the public, this might look like entertainment, but to Priscilla, it's invasion, strangers carving up a life she once lived. Those who've worked with her say this is the fight of her life, not for money, but for authorship. Because when legends die, what's left to protect isn't the person, it's the narrative. And every person close to Elvis, from old bandmates to business partners, has tried to claim a piece of that truth. Maybe Priscilla just refuses to let anyone else speak louder than her. But there's a deeper cost. Each new revelation pushes the Presley family further from peace. The more Priscilla talks, the more fans question her motives. The more she defends, the more they accuse. And somewhere in the middle, the real story of a love that began with two dreamers from Memphis gets lost beneath headlines and speculation. The saddest part? The person who could have bridged that gap, Lisa Marie, is gone. She understood both sides. She loved her father, but she also carried her mother's scars. Now, without her, the Presley legacy feels like a puzzle missing its centerpiece. Still, there's something undeniably human about Priscilla's persistence. She's 80 years old, yet still fighting to be heard in a world that would rather label her than listen. Some call her stubborn, others call her brave. But beneath all the noise, her voice carries something familiar. The same defiance Elvis once had when he stood against an industry trying to mold him. In that way, she might be the last reflection of the man she loved. As time moves on, Graceland will continue to draw millions. Tourists snapping photos, fans leaving roses, dreamers standing in silence. But the truth is, Graceland was never just Elvis's home. It was a mirror of everyone who walked through its gates, each visitor carrying their own version of who he was. And now, Priscilla Presley is forcing the world to decide which version it wants to believe. Because legacies don't die, they just change hands. And sometimes the hardest part isn't keeping a legend alive, it's deciding who gets to speak for it. Maybe that's the tragedy and the triumph of the Presley story. That even in death, Elvis still pulls people toward him. Not just through his music, but through the battles over what that music meant. The truth, the myth, the man, the memory. all still fighting for space under one name. And standing in the center, as she always has, is Priscilla, the woman who once loved him, lost him, and now dares to tell the world that even legends have shadows. What do you think? Is Priscilla protecting Elvis's truth, or rewriting it to protect herself? Share your thoughts below, because this story isn't over. And in the Presley family, every secret has a sequel. Stay tuned. The next revelation might change everything we thought we knew.